Ethics is concerned with prescribing and describing moral requirements and behaviors. There are acceptable and unacceptable ways of behavior. The values of the members of an organization form the foundation of the organization. Shake their faith and the entire organization will collapse. In the same way, an honest grassroots fundraising campaign must be run with standards of behavior built on the members' values. The Christian Church, as a faith-based organization, in its approach to fundraising rests on biblical ethics and the values of its leadership. Christianity is essentially a social religion. Christian fundraising is a function of biblical stewardship. Saving faith touches all of life, which is a gift from God. Scripture says, faith is the substance of things hoped for. It is the evidence of things not seen. Biblical stewardship, therefore, plays an important role in the ability for Christian organizations to build long relationships with potential donors and attract financial support for specific projects for church mission. No real transformation of an individual by God's grace could fail to affect one's life. The Bible is understood primarily as an ethical norm. Christ, the apostles, and Christians are examples one should emulate. Christians can attain blessedness in this life by carefully fulfilling the commandments given them. Our fundraising methods reflect not only the character of our organization, but also its values. All who are in Christian ministry want their ethics to be biblical. Christians have one package of 10 commandments. It is the Christian's moral compass. North, always keep sight of Christ. Good intentions can be the enemies of integrity. The first responsibility is to see that you are raising money for an honest, ethical organization. This means that one that opens access to it for any person who wants to join, open democratic decision-making, clear, complete, up-to-date reports, frequent reporting to all representatives, and sensible financial controls. Christian leaders and values support long-term organizational success. Being clear about your standards and maintaining them is critical to building a long-term trusting relationship between the people who give money and the members who spend it. People and organizations exist within a code of ethics. An ethical organization makes sure that the people who give and the people who ask for money have a say in how it will be spent. The first issue we must face concerning integrating our faith into our organization's fundraising practices is that the method of fundraising reflects the character of the organization. This is inescapable. The integrity of those responsible for fundraising decisions is at stake. No one can avoid questions of integrity and ethics, trust and honesty. The word integrity means whole, unimpaired. Integrity is doing what you said you would do. Integrity is now proving itself to be the heart and soul of the whole person. This applies to the boardroom, the executive committee room, the pulpit, the family room, and the classroom. The character of our organization is, in turn, a direct reflection on the character and integrity of its leaders. You can make rules, but they will not produce men and women of integrity. As goes our fundraising, so goes the public perception of our organization. What do they see of us? They see our public fundraising methods, but it is unlikely that more than a few have actual knowledge of what we do or are close participants in our ministry. Whatever methods we use ultimately come from the hearts of the leadership. Clearly, we must have money to fulfill our mission. Sometimes that need will cause us to conduct the ministry and make decisions in different ways than if we did not need to solicit funds. What are some specific questions related to integrity and fundraising? There are at least 3. Why are the funds raised? What fundraising methods are used? Where are the funds spent? Trust matters. Transparency and accountability. Trust matters in the relationship between donors and the people they serve. One of the unfortunate realities of the 1990s was that too many leaders, both in for-profit and not-for-profit organizations, abused public trust. It is hard when the stories of inappropriate behavior flood the daily news media. Charges and countercharges regarding possible misappropriation of thousands of millions of dollars are unaccounted for. So much distrust, deceit, and destruction caused society and individuals to engage in intensive self and collective examination and reflection in audits and other ways. In the absence of trust, no organizational structure will be effective. Only when people trust each other can they work effectively regardless of the structure. Trust matters because it affects how we relate to people. Trust matters in all organizations, political, for-profit, not-for-profit, secular, or religious. Trust is the only element strong enough to enable organizations to deal with the issues and challenges they face. The central question is what the governing body and organizational leadership should do to develop or restore trust in the organization. The ultimate responsibility for trust in an organization rests with its governing board or executive committee. Whether it is the private sector governing body or a not-for-profit sector board of trustees, the board defines the values, purpose, vision, mission, and the strategy of the organization. It is their responsibility to clarify values and behaviors. Trust matters because it affects how people are treated. Over recent decades, corporate leaders, including the religious community, have lost sight of intangible values such as trust and become preoccupied with procedures, programs, and money. In too many instances, we hear more about their money, companies' finances than we do about their purposes, hopes, or ethics. Today, we have to engage the hearts and minds of those with whom we work or relate. To be effective, organizations must master 4 issues. First, they must have a clear set of values that shape their behavior and provide a commonly understood framework within which people operate. Second, they must have a vision that focuses on future direction and what they want to accomplish. Third, people at all levels of the organization must have the skills to accomplish what they need to do. And fourth, people must have the tools and systems to enable them to accomplish what they need to do. These concepts are important because they represent efforts to focus on people, principles, and meaning rather than on mechanics of what we do. In a church, it is the pastoral staff and the church board that sets the values, commitment, and behavior that sets the tone for the organization. The church board does not act as agents who pursue self-interest at the expense of the organization, its members, employees, or other team members. Rather, the board members serve as trustees for the organization. In the not-for-profit sector, boards serve the entire community. Trustees are responsible for improving the quality of life in communities they serve. In the not-for-profit sector, boards have responsibility for remaining financially sound and ensuring the organization's long-term ability to meet the needs of people in the communities it serves. The key differences between organizations in the not-for-profit organizations are managed for the benefit of the community. In both cases, the governing board sets the tone for the organization. If members don't care about trust, nobody else will. When organizations do what they are supposed to do, we trust them. When they stray from their purposes and promises, fail to do what we expect, or violate our perceptions of common sense, we question whether we can trust them. And the only element strong enough to enable organizations to deal with the challenges they face is trust. And the central question is, what can a board do in developing and or retaining trust in an organization? Boards and committees are being challenged to look beyond the balance sheet and income statement to assess how effectively the organization responds to the needs of the people they serve and the communities in which they are a part of. Not-for-profit organizations are responsible for remaining financially sound and ensuring organizations in their ability to meet the needs of people in the organization it serves and represents. The role of leadership. Within the framework provided by the church board, people in leadership trust an organization's purpose to the extent that it reflects a commitment to the organization's purpose and mission that embodies its values. If leaders' behavior isn't congruent with the mission, vision, and values of the organization, nobody trusts the managers, and the inevitable result is mistrust and confusion that shows up in other ways in the behavior of those who concentrate on their own well-being rather than what they should contribute to the organization's efforts. Experiences tell us that it is useful to stop and take a look at the nature of trust and the relationships built on trust. Trust and trusting relationships share 7 characteristics. Commitment. Actions say they are committed to something more than themselves. Familiarity. We know them well enough to know they can be trusted. Personal responsibility. They are willing to take responsibility for their behavior. Integrity. We trust people who are honest and self-awareness and knowing how and who we are. Consistency. We trust people whose behavior reflects what they say they believe. They walk the talk. We trust people whose actions are consistent with what they say they believe and who stand by their beliefs regardless of the fashions of the time. Communication. Communication is essential to trust. Trust is eroded when we are unwilling to deal straightforwardly with sensitive or difficult issues. And last but not least, forgiveness and reconciliation. One of the realities in each of our lives is that we will all, at one time or another, abuse the trust of people we care about. Our ability to forgive and be forgiven so we can move beyond these breaches is an important part of any relationship. Underlying these 7 characteristics is an understanding that the essence of trust is spiritual and requires faith. It's hard to know what to call spirituality. It may be God, the realm of the Spirit, the one that unites us, the indwelling Christ. Spirituality provides the basis for trust because it compels us to consider the morality of what we do. Spirituality makes it easier to lead our lives in ways that inspire the confidence and trust of those around us. Seeing through donors' eyes, what matters most to donors? By using the term donor, it is obviously assumed that the individual has given financially or in some way. At the core of the issues affecting donors is the personal motivation for giving. The issues of asking takes on a new light when it is viewed from the donor's perspective. An essential, if not the most important question a donor will have is, why should I give you my money? Donors desire to hear a need and an equally strong willingness to give. Seeing through a donor's eyes must explain how to write a successful case statement for support. Do you have an inspiring case for support that will bring results? Donors have a responsibility to hold fundraisers and the organization they represent accountable. Good relationships require effective communication, and that involves the total person, the emotion, the intellect, and the will. The money people bring to an organization is exchanged for a relationship, a valued personal link with what God is doing in the world through the fundraiser, through the leadership of the organization, its employees, and its constituents. A donor partner wants the right and the need to know his or her financial investment is being used. The importance of financial accountability has long been stressed by watchdog groups as the Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability. How we conduct ourselves affects our testimony and our integrity. We are not free as leaders to do anything we wish. Lying, stealing, cheating, misrepresentation. The issue is not integrity alone in fundraising, but as committed men and women, we must guard against ungodly behavior. All of us, givers and askers, are vulnerable. Pastoral leadership. The pastor is the best positioned to lead the fundraising process with the side-by-side lay leadership support. He or she must set the stage, inspire, cultivate, and motivate the church governing board, key volunteers, and the at-large member donor base. Integrity starts with the first line of leadership, the pastor. The character of the organization is a direct reflection of the character and integrity of the pastor and other key leaders. As Christian leaders, we must set a personal goal to be a man or woman of integrity. There are several things that the pastor must do to provide effective leadership for fundraising. 1, he or she must take the lead in crafting or reviewing the church's vision, mission, and values statements to set the tone for the future and inspiring prospective donors to help. 2, the pastor must view fundraising as an integral part of the regular giving of tithes and total sacrificial offerings by the congregation, as opposed to an ancillary function. 3, the pastor, working with the church officers and the governing board, must ensure transparency and accountability for measurable results. Transparency is of utmost importance in building a solid donor relationship based on trust. Donor relationships. Donor relationships are like any other relationship. They require an investment of time and energy. The goal of donor cultivation is to cultivate a lifelong, mutually beneficial relationship between the donor and the church organization. Both receive something valuable out of a community maturing relationship. In fundraising, the organization receives ongoing, ever-increasing support that fuels the church's mission and vision and goals. The donor receives multiple benefits, the most important being the chance to express gratitude to God for his or her love, grace, and mercy and goodness. Other benefits include the joy of knowing that they are helping make the work of God a worthy cause possible, and the joy of knowing and supporting the work of the church embodying its mission and ethos. Cultivating donor relationships. 1, identification. Potential donors must be identified as supporters. Church members are assumed to be the obvious, most likely donors and supporters. Other church members may also be interested as supporters of the project. 2, potential donors must be informed about the project and understand the church's mission and be familiar with its good works. They must understand its vision. They must trust the organization's leadership and be familiar with the leadership's ability and integrity. The church organization must inform the prospective donors of all these things by a combination of communication, marketing, and personal cultivation strategies. 3, interest. For the relationship to go forward, the prospect has to develop a genuine interest in the project. The leadership must constantly look for clues that indicate a prospect has moved from being informed to being interested, even if the person is a member of the congregation. 4, involvement. People typically give to those organizations in which they are involved. The organization must offer ways for those interested in its work to become involved. Events and activities, committees, teams, and other ways are typical ways of involvement. 5, investment. At this stage, the prospect converts to a donor, investing in the organization's work. These last stages form something of a cycle, whereby the donor must be continuously kept informed, interested, and involved by several ways to one degree or another to increase the probability that an investment will be made.